welcome to USTC360. I'm Rivola Shatterson.
And I'm Niels.
We're now at the Salvation Army's auditorium at its International Social Justice Commission here in New York. It's where panels for the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women are continuing their second week.
Right, and today, Dilber, Tsuchi is having his panel on the light of hope for achieving the Millennium Development Goals, where the focus is on women as role models in their rural communities. And they have printed about 350 of these flyers, which I have here, and plan to have a lot of people to listen in.
Right, and it all started with an invitation.
Yes, it's the ECOSOC,
which is actually the UN's Economic and Social Council,
that invites its member NGOs to participate in the CSW and host discussions that offer a perspective that only the organizations can give.
Well, let's take a look and see how Tsuchi caught the eye of the ECOSOC just a few years ago. The UN's Economic and Social Council meets annually and with the intent of discussing and debating the world's economic, social, and environmental challenges. It's this body that grants arrangements for NGOs or non-governmental organizations to engage with the UN. In July of 2010, the Tsuji Foundation finally earned its special consultative status. Since that time, Tsuji has been engaging in various commissions of the UN throughout the world. Tsuji hosted its first side event for the CSW in 2011, where volunteers from South Africa were invited to contribute to the panel, breaking the cycle of poverty of women and girls through education and training. In 2012, the panel was called Food Security and Global Change and featured speakers from the Hunger Project and Solar Cookers International. And last year, speakers from both Haiti and the Dominican Republic touched on strategies to prevent violence against girls in the panel Education as Empowerment. And now, who better to help us understand how Tsuji became present in the international stage other than the Director of International Affairs, Martin Guo. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So, can you tell me about how the UN and Tsuji became connected through Mexico City in 2009?
Actually, 2009 was the first one for the UN facilitate outside the United States. And I remember for the Mexico City mission, that was for disarmament. Okay, the world will be a better place. So we kind of just create a Buddha tree with a beautiful tree leaf. We made it. So we can hang on the tree as the peace tree. And then aside, we put a bell. All the visitors come to our booths, and then they sign, they pledge to be part of the world peace. And then also they ring the peace bell. So everybody was so impressed.
And so what happened in Australia and afterwards Germany with Tsuji and continuing its presence in the world stage?
I think it's 2010 in Melbourne, Australia. Follow after, as 2011, we were in Germany. More than tens of thousands of NGOs, they participate yearly. So 80 to 90% of the NGO coming back after Mexico City to Melbourne, Australia. So they have some kind of impression on Tsuji, a foundation of Buddhists. So they learn this organization not only doing the 4 missions, charity and medical, also doing the environmental protection, and then the like energy conservation, like we always follow the master's guidance. We have so much we can show to the world to match the topic and the issue of each year's DPI's NGO. 2011, I think Bern, Germany, they are talking about substantial society and the responsive citizen. Yes, that's what we do. I remember some organization come to us. They think this should be the job and the duty for the government. So we explain to them, yes, we work with the government, but we have a people to be a volunteer. So they're very impressed. We send the message out to the world.
Well, what kind of impression did Tsuji also leave on the local volunteers when you went to all of these places on behalf of the DPI NGO, which is the Department of Public Information's non-governmental organization conference?
Okay, what their acknowledgement about Tsuji is just, okay, a Buddhist, and then it's just like a charity. So first of all, we introduce our mission to UN, to them. Second of all, we have a chance to help the local volunteer to get all the community people who sometimes help Tzu Chi, but don't know much what we have done. We really introduced Tzu Chi through this UN event, and also we connect with local community people.
Which of those is more important, the team visiting with the UN or the team visiting and inspiring the volunteers?
To me, I think this is the completion of mission to UN, also the journey that Tzu Chi gonna reach out. Through this journey, we have a chance not only on the international stage to introduce us to them, but also we introduce this great concept of ours to the people.
So what is your hopes for Tzu Chi working with the UN and being part of its events?
We, as a volunteer, we serve with joy, and we learn that so much need to be done. So I hope with that kind of approach and participation, we can get more recognition, and also we will find a partner who have a similar concept like us.
Well, thank you very much and good luck at this year's CSW.
Thank you for having me.
And so now let's go check it back in with Niels and see another familiar face of 360.
I am now joined by George Chang, the Executive Director of Tzu Chi's Northeast region here in the US. Thank you for being with us, George.
A pleasure to join with you here.
So can you first bring us back to 2010 when finally Tzu Chi received the status from the ECOSOC?
We feel so honored, but on the other hand, we also feel big pressure on our shoulder because the master make a speech, and she say, from now on, we are not only caring to reach out for the people we used to be. Right now, we have to carry the whole global. I feel as long as we have that kind of a willingness, we can demonstrate the willingness we are going to carry the love to the people that need it.
So what has evolved since 2010? Or maybe how did the pressure become stronger and stronger and heavier on your shoulders?
After we were recognized by the UN, we have our responsible to fulfill, and also we have more opportunity to contact a different UN agency. So we're kind of busy, but we love to accept that kind of a challenge because we can obtain the first-hand information and we could widen our network.
Well, the panel is about to start now, so I think you have to get ready, and I also have to get ready because I will be translating for the Haitian volunteers who are here.
Oh, this is the first time we're going to use French and English and Mandarin, so good luck.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And let's jump into the panel now.
Every year, ECOSOC NGOs are invited to host parallel events for the CSW. This year, Tzu Chi's brings together 3 panelists. To start, they have Rebecca Rivola of Yale University to touch on disaster-related gender response. And to cover the issues women directly face in rebuilding are 2 veteran volunteers from Haiti. They've flown in for the week and will be sharing their experiences here in the US, but of course in French.
What was the best thing about this is that there was this really granular look. But in order for people to be able to place those stories into a larger context, I think it's good to have a little bit of a look at the trends for disasters, for climate change.
Now let's make our way back to Tzu Chi's official interpreter.
Niels, you're part of this program, but you're part of that program inside. What's going on?
Yes, I was asked to translate for the Haitian volunteers as the 2 of them only speak French and Creole. But it was a pleasure for me to do it, but it was also nice because I know what they are doing in Haiti for going with the 360 team and filming them, filming their initiatives in Haiti, in their communities. So I was able to translate even more.
So what special little thing can those ladies bring to this conference? It's different.
I think for them, the UN CSW is something scary because it's a big stage they are not used to. But at the same time, in their communities, they are role models. and they can share what they have learned in their communities with that many women from the entire world. And the same thing, vice versa, learn from many women from the entire world and bring it back to Haiti. And I think many of their women, their volunteers in Haiti, are really willing to learn what they have learned here at the UNCSW.
So do you mind if we go take a look and see what...
I think we should go meet one of them, one of the volunteers from Haiti, and in French.
Oh, bien sûr.
I'll hold the door for you.
Oh, thank you.
Et je suis donc maintenant avec Mireille ou Marie-Ange Collinet.
Oui.
Merci d'être avec nous.
Merci aussi.
Donc Marie-Ange, vous étiez la présidente de l'association des guides d'Haïti, catholique, et c'est comme ça que vous êtes rentrée en contact avec la Fondation de Tzu Chi en Haïti après le tremblement de terre, parce que vous cherchiez de l'aide dans la communauté catholique après le tremblement de terre.
Effectivement, et je suis guide, je suis encore guide. Donc c'est en tant que tel, et étant aussi catholique, je cherchais de l'aide avec les prêtres franciscains de ma communauté. Donc on voulait venir en aide à ces nombreux sinistrés qui étaient éparpillés sur la place. Et c'est ainsi que le prêtre Colombano a trouvé la Fondation Tzu Chi et qui a spontanément, nous avons aimé cette spontanéité chez eux. Ils sont venus et nous ont aidés. Ils ont répondu à notre appel en nous fournissant des couvertures et de la nourriture pour ces gens-là qui en avaient tellement besoin.
Et maintenant, 4 ans plus tard, vous vous retrouvez ici, à New York, aux Nations Unies, pour ce congrès sur le statut de la femme.
Oui, c'est vrai, et c'est un honneur pour moi d'être là pour représenter la femme haïtienne, parce que, effectivement, alors je dois vous dire sincèrement que j'hésitais à faire partie de la fondation, sachant qu'ils étaient bouddhistes. En tant que catholique, ça ne me plaisait pas beaucoup d'être bouddhiste. Mais les autres qui étaient avec moi ont spontanément répondu, mais moi j'hésitais. Mais quand je les ai vus travailler et j'ai vu ce qu'ils avaient comme potentialité de servir, et j'ai découvert aussi que c'était la même philosophie que les guides. Être pour ça, c'est aussi une guide. Donc, c'est servir, c'est aimer les autres, c'est venir à leurs besoins. Donc, alors là, je n'ai plus hésité, j'y suis et j'y reste.
Et comment vous avez réagi alors quand on vous a proposé de venir parler à ce sommet ici à New York en tant que modèle de votre communauté? Parce que c'est ça vraiment le terme aujourd'hui employé, c'est les femmes modèles de leur communauté.
Ah, bon, ça a été un choc et un plaisir aussi, parce que je ne parle pas très bien l'anglais. Je comprends plus ou moins, mais j'ai dû écrire à ma soeur et à mon frère pour lui dire « Ce que je vois là, traduisez pour moi, s'il vous plaît. » Donc, ils m'ont rassuré, ils m'ont dit que c'était vrai. Donc, c'est un honneur pour moi, c'est un honneur pour ma famille, c'est un honneur pour les femmes haïtiennes et surtout un honneur pour les femmes de ma communauté, parce que je viens d'un milieu pauvre. Donc, c'est vraiment un honneur pour moi.
Mais vous êtes vous-même un modèle pour ces femmes haïtiennes dans cette communauté qui est la vôtre, et encore plus peut-être depuis que vous êtes une volontaire de Tzu Chi. Est-ce que vous pouvez parler un petit peu de ça?
Bon, oui, je constitue un modèle pour non seulement les femmes de ma génération, mais pour les plus jeunes aussi. Parce que ça me fait plaisir quand ils me disent « Sister Mireille, j'ai besoin de conseils. Sister Mireille, comment pouvez-vous m'aider ?» Et ça me fait aussi plaisir d'être avec vous. Parce qu'avec vous, et comme membre de Tzu Chi, les femmes de ma communauté ont appris maintenant ce que c'est que le volontariat. Elles s'y adonnent à fond, elles le font de bon cœur, elles viennent chaque jour. Elles savent maintenant ce que c'est aider les autres sans rien recevoir. Donc, je trouve que c'est formidable. La présence de Tzu Chi dans ma zone a vraiment aidé ma communauté. Venir en aide aux enfants qui ont besoin d'aller à l'école. Donc, ils ont un grand programme que nous appelons le HCP, c'est Happy Campus Programme. Et à l'intérieur de ce programme, nous avons des sous-activités. Et puis, parler aussi du moringa, l'arbre miracle de notre pays maintenant.
Le moringa, c'est un exemple vraiment particulier parce que vous mentionniez pendant la discussion à quel point le moringa montre comment les femmes sont impliquées à chaque étape de la production du moringa.
Tout à fait, tout à fait. Mais le côté cocasse de l'affaire, c'est que nous en avions, mais nous ne savions pas les vertus. Parce que si vous allez du côté du nord de notre pays, vous allez en trouver beaucoup, mais on ne savait pas vraiment les vertus. Mais avec la venue de Suchi dans ma zone, nous avons commencé à découvrir le moringa et maintenant nous l'utilisons dans les plats chauds que nous servons à nos enfants, dans le lait que nous donnons à nos bébés. Les femmes de mon pays s'impliquent, cultivent, plantent et récoltent et donnent à leur famille de quoi manger. Haïti, c'est quelque chose de spécial. Tout le monde entend parler d'Haïti, mais on ne sait pas vraiment ce qu'est Haïti. Haïti, c'est un grand pays. Moi, je le dis chaque jour. On dit qu'Haïti est un pays pauvre. Moi, je trouve que Haïti n'est pas un pays pauvre. Au contraire, Haïti est un pays riche de par sa culture, de par son histoire, de par ses femmes, qui sont des femmes vaillantes. Et ceci depuis notre indépendance. Parce que je peux vous rappeler que certaines de nos femmes étaient à côté de leurs maris, de leurs frères pour lutter pour notre indépendance. Donc notre histoire est une histoire riche. Moi, je trouve que nous sommes vraiment riches. Donc ce n'est pas un pays pauvre. Et j'adore mon pays.
Vous allez bientôt retourner en Haïti. Et quel message vous allez leur apporter à ces femmes de peut-être ce que vous avez appris ici aussi à New York?
Donc je leur dirai de rester courageuses, parce qu'elles le sont déjà, de rester courageuses, travailleuses, aimantes et sensibles, comme elles le sont maintenant.
C'est une belle conclusion. Merci beaucoup en tout cas.
Merci aussi
D'avoir été avec nous et bon retour en Haïti alors.
Merci beaucoup. Ça a été un plaisir.
Et à très bientôt en Haïti.
À très bientôt en Haïti.
And let's now go see other volunteers from another country, the Philippines.
As part of the official UN events hosted by the CSW, one panel features a presentation by the Philippine delegation. It features 5 speakers, 3 from the Philippines, a speaker from the US, and another from Japan. With Typhoon Haiyan being the latest mega disaster at the table, attendees listened in with eager ears as the room quickly filled beyond capacity. I now have the pleasure of being joined by Cheche Cabrera and Malu Kagay from the Philippine delegation here at the UN, who have just come from the panel Gender Responsive Disaster Response. Thank you for joining me, ladies.
Thank you also for inviting us.
So tell me about the panel. What were the key issues that you wanted to tackle today?
Actually, the side event for the Philippines is an opportunity for us to share how in the Philippines we mainstreamed the gender issues or gender concerns in our disaster risk reduction and management.
How did you feel that your expectations going into the panel were met once it was over?
After the sharing, there were lots of those who approached us and thanked us. You know, it's a sharing of how the Philippines did our gender mainstreaming in terms of disaster management.
Were there any moments of surprise or where you had a kind of light bulb coming off in your head about the discussion that was happening?
Yeah, actually, because of the sharing as well of the representatives from the United States and Japan.
From both of us from the Philippines, she is representing the government perspective, and I am actually representing the CSO perspective and then the community.
How do you feel that both of your backgrounds can complement each other to talk about this issue?
You know, it mixes very well. The experiences that my colleague here had shared in terms of how the NGOs and the civil society cooperate with the Philippine government in terms of capacitating the communities for preparing and mitigating disasters. That went very well, and in the Philippines, we did practice that.
Coming back to Typhoon Haiyan, what were some of the gender-specific issues that were faced in the Philippines?
People or families housed in evacuation centers, they're so cramped. That's why possibility of gender-related issues can be possible. When we move them to bunk houses, we're happy that the International Organization on Migration facilitated additional improvement in terms of having partitions, and the Department of Public Works and Highways made sure that large-sized families or families with young women or young girls are provided additional rooms. That would separate women and single women and young girls from the rest of the families, or exposing them directly to potential dangers.
Yeah. And also for providing orientations for the families, children, and women on how to protect themselves, because DSWD and in cooperation with several NGOs and civil society organizations, actually they do some psychosocial and also identifying some issues while in the bunk houses or in the tent.
How can the example of work done during Typhoon Haiyan improve gender-responsive disaster response?
Based on our experience in the Philippines, women are really resilient, and they lead not only by way of examples, but they really are doing in terms of making sure that other displaced individuals are also being assisted, not only in terms of psychosocial, but they do also facilitate provision of food and non-food support to the families and the individuals inside or within the camp.
What for you makes the perspective that comes from the Philippines so special here at this year's CSW?
I'm sure there are also other countries experiencing the same, but because of the magnitude of Typhoon Haiyan, it's really unprecedented, and a large size of population had been affected in terms of exposure to potential abuses or discrimination. The large population will be definitely very challenging in terms of management of cases related to gender, and the perspective of and the practice that we have definitely will make sure that women are protected and that any forms of abuse are being prevented before it starts or before it happens.
And what is your hope for the outcome for the next 2 weeks?
We have different countries here, and each one will have their position proposals to enhance and strengthen further the gender mainstreaming and protection equality of women. And we hope that there will be unity in terms of intentions all across the country or all across the world in terms of making sure that the propositions are being realized, resolutions are being put to action and actualized at different country level.
Yeah. And hopefully that, you know, they also have a recognition of the country context, because we need to also recognize that, like for example, in the Philippines, we have a lot of different groups of people. We have indigenous peoples, we have Muslims, and we have Christians. So we need to also recognize and contextualize some positions based on the context of specific countries.
Well, thank you very much, ladies, and best of luck at the...
And best of luck also for Choche Foundation.
Oh, no,
thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. So now let's check back in with Niels to see how the rest of the conference is going. So Niels, what did you make of this year's Tsuchi panel?
I think it was great. Yeah, the Tsuchi panel, for instance, the Haitian were asking me so many questions about the volunteers from Philippines. They have never had the chance to meet, but for the first time here they were able to meet, even through Skype. And they wanted to know so much more, and overall I think it's a great platform for them, for these women, to learn more about other women's lives in many countries and whatever they are doing as volunteers too. So for them I think it was fantastic. How about you, Dilber?
Well, I really like the diversity that this particular panel brought to the table, but also I like the diversity that we saw throughout the entire CSW. You have voices from people who are working on the ground, with people who are affected with, you know, these different things like disasters and any kind of other environmental issues or political anything. And at the same time, you have people who are policymakers. So it was a nice balance of those two perspectives. So I'd actually like to see more of that.
Absolutely. Next year?
Oh, why not? Just not through Skype.
Yes, I think we'll be back and see many more women and many more volunteers from many other countries next year at this UN CSW.
Well, thank you very much for co-hosting with me today.
It was a pleasure, Dilber.
I'm Dilbar Chatterson.
And I'm Niels.
And we'll see you soon.